Have you ever wondered who healed the world before the world learned to heal itself? Long before the first hospital, before science gave names to herbs and diseases, Africa was already a continent of healers. In the quiet shade of baobab trees, knowledge passed not through books, but through hands, songs, and spirit. They called upon the earth, the ancestors, and the wisdom of time itself. From the valleys of the Nile to the forests of the Congo, from the deserts of the Sahara to the mountains of Ethiopia, healers shaped the very foundations of medicine. Their herbs calmed fevers, their rituals mended the soul, their science of plants, now called pharmacology, once lived in every African village, but history forgot their names, while their remedies still save lives today. This is the untold story of Africa's medicine, the mother of healing, and how her ancient wisdom gave birth to the science the world now calls modern medicine. In the heart of ancient civilizations, including Kemet, Egypt, Nubia, Mali, Carthage, and Great Zimbabwe, medicine was a blend of science and spirituality. In Egypt, healers known as Sunu were trained physicians who diagnosed illnesses, performed surgeries, and prescribed herbal remedies recorded in the Ebers Papyrus, dating back to 1550 BCE, one of the oldest medical texts on Earth. To the west, among the Dogon, Yoruba, and Akan peoples, medicine was sacred knowledge passed from generation to generation, guarded by herbalists, diviners, and midwives. Their understanding of nature was profound. They knew which roots soothed pain, which leaves could reduce fever, and which barks could bring sleep. In every village, health was not just the absence of disease, it was balance. Between the body and the spirit, between the community and the ancestors. In the early morning before sunrise, the traditional healer, or Nganga, Babalawo, or Inyanga, would walk into the forest barefoot. They spoke to the earth before pulling a root. They sang to the ancestors before cutting bark from a tree. This was not superstition, it was ecological knowledge. They knew the right season to harvest leaves, how to combine plants to enhance potency, and how to neutralize poison. The Bakongo healers used over 300 species of medicinal plants. The Yoruba used herbs like Uabo for fertility and Agbo Jedi for cleansing. The Khoisan used desert succulents for hydration and wound treatment. Their work was guided by observation, tradition, and spiritual discipline, what modern science now calls ethnobotany. African medicine was applied through various methods, including baths, steaming therapy practices, poultices, and herbal teas. Every illness was believed to have both physical and spiritual causes. If you suffered from headaches, a healer might prescribe herbs and prayer. If your body failed, they might also cleanse your spirit. The healer's duty was to restore harmony, not just heal disease. Communal rituals accompanied healing. Drumming, chanting, and incense burning helped align the patient's energy. Some methods, such as bone setting, circumcision, and surgery, were advanced long before Western practitioners adopted similar techniques. African women were also the backbone of health. Midwives guided childbirth with skill, herbs, and chants that ensured safe deliveries and postpartum care. Many do not realize how much modern medicine owes to Africa. Long before laboratories and white coats, before microscopes and hospitals, there were healers, barefoot, wise, and patient, who read the language of the earth. Africa's physicians were botanists, chemists, and spiritual guides all in one. They studied the soil, the scent of crushed leaves, the rhythm of the body. Their cures were not written in books. They were whispered in songs, shared by grandmothers, and carried from one generation to the next. Artemisinin, now one of the world's most powerful anti-malarial drugs, finds its ancestry in the ancient herbal traditions practiced across Africa and Asia. In villages across the Sahel, traditional healers used artemisia plants, steeping their leaves in hot water to treat fevers that came with the mosquito bite. They did not know of Plasmodium falciparum, the malaria parasite, but they knew the body's pain, and they knew nature's answer. Centuries later, scientists isolated artemisinin from these same plants, creating a drug that has saved millions of lives around the world. What began in small clay pots and woven baskets beneath African trees now lives in sterile glass vials across modern hospitals. In the dry hills of southern Africa, another miracle grew. Aloe ferox, a plant of survival. For generations, healers crushed its bitter sap to cleanse the body and soothe wounds. Its gel cooled burns and scars, and its extracts purified the stomach. The San and Khoi peoples knew its power well. They called it the plant that conquers pain. Today, the same compounds form the base of modern laxatives, skincare formulas, and pharmaceuticals. It is a reminder that science often begins not in laboratories, but in the hands of those who live close to the land. Perhaps one of the most extraordinary contributions came not from a scholar, but from a man enslaved. Onesimus, an African man living in the 18th century Boston, carried with him a fragment of wisdom from his homeland, a practice called variolation. He told his master, Cotton Mather, that in Africa they would take a drop of pus from a person with smallpox and scratch it into the skin of a healthy person. The result, a mild infection that granted immunity for life. This knowledge, dismissed at first, would go on to inspire the first steps toward vaccination, centuries before modern medicine perfected the smallpox vaccine. It was African science, born from experience, observation, and care, that planted the seed of immunology. Even the sun, Africa's constant companion, was once a healer. Ancient African mothers noticed that newborns with yellowed skin grew healthier when bathed in morning light. They believed the sun drew out illness, and they were right. Today doctors call this phototherapy, used to treat jaundice in infants worldwide. It works on the same principle, light breaking down excess bilirubin in the body. A mother's intuition, a healer's trust in the sun, both now validated by modern science. African knowledge saved millions, yet their names rarely appear in history books. Their discoveries were often dismissed, erased, or claimed by others, but their legacy remains. In every medicine that began as a leaf, every healing practice that honors both body and spirit, and every doctor who now speaks of holistic care. Africa's contribution to medicine is not a footnote, it is a foundation. The world's pharmacies, hospitals, and research labs still echo the wisdom of the continent that first learned to heal with the earth. In ancient Africa, medicine was never separated from the divine. Healers treated not only disease, but destiny. If illness was seen as a sign of imbalance with one's ancestors, rituals of reconciliation were performed, involving music, water, and sacred symbols. This integration of mind, body, and spirit mirrors today's holistic medicine movement, now celebrated globally. The African healer understood what modern science is rediscovering. You cannot heal the body without healing the soul. For centuries, colonization and Western domination labeled African medicine as superstition. Missionaries burned herbal texts and outlawed indigenous healers. Yet, the wisdom survived, carried in stories, songs, and rituals whispered at night. Today, across Africa, traditional medicine continues to thrive alongside hospitals. Countries like Ghana, South Africa, and Nigeria are integrating traditional healers into public health systems. But challenges remain. Lack of documentation due to oral tradition, quality control, and standardization of herbs. Recognition and respect for the knowledge holders. the elders, herbalists, and midwives. Still, this wisdom endures. Like the roots of the baobab, deep and unbroken, long before the advent of modern medicine, hospitals, or vaccines, ancient African societies had already developed complex and remarkably effective methods to manage epidemics and control disease. These strategies were not the result of laboratory studies, but of centuries of observation, adaptation, and spiritual wisdom passed down through oral tradition. In many African communities, when signs of contagious disease appeared, such as leprosy, smallpox, or strange fevers, the response was immediate and organized. The sick were isolated in temporary huts or designated healing camps, often at the edge of a village or deep in the forest. These were not acts of cruelty, but of protection and compassion. The community continued to bring food, herbs, and prayers to the sick, maintaining emotional and spiritual support while minimizing contact. Across regions, the natural layout of African settlements also played a silent role in preventing disease spread. Unlike the crowded cities of medieval Europe, African homes were spaced apart, usually separated by farmland, trees, or open space. A typical village might have only a few extended families clustered together, creating what we might now call a built-in form of social distancing. This structure, shaped by geography and tradition, helped slow contagion long before anyone understood germs. Cleanliness and environmental control were deeply embedded in African life. Archaeological and ethnographic evidence shows that communities would burn infected huts or even entire settlements when diseases spread uncontrollably. The ashes symbolized both spiritual cleansing and physical disinfection. Once the fire had consumed the sickness, survivors either rebuilt on the same purified land or migrated to new territory to begin anew. In other regions, rivers and streams were used as natural disinfectants. People would wash themselves, their tools, and even livestock in running water to symbolically and physically remove the shadow of disease. This ancient understanding of water as a cleansing element mirrors modern sanitation principles in public health. Across the continent, death was treated with both reverence and caution. Many African cultures had strict taboos against touching the dead or disturbing burial sites. To outsiders, these taboos might have seemed purely spiritual, but they also served a vital public health function. By minimizing contact with corpses, communities effectively reduced post-mortem disease transmission. In times of epidemic, special burial protocols were enacted. Some societies buried victims quickly and separately. Others practiced ritual burning of bodies to ensure the sickness would not walk again. The belief that disease could linger in the spirit of the dead may have inspired such practices, yet, unknowingly, they prevented secondary infections, achieving what modern medicine would later call infection control. African healing traditions also emphasized the relationship between food and health. Communities understood that a strong body resisted illness better. Their diets were rich in roots, fruits, leaves, grains, and herbs, all providing diverse vitamins and minerals long before the term nutrition existed. For example, in West Africa, the baobab fruit was consumed for its high vitamin C content, fortifying the immune system. In East Africa, moringa leaves were used to boost strength during recovery. In Southern Africa, the African potato, Hypoxis hemerocalidea, was used to enhance resilience and treat infections. Many of these traditional foods are now being studied and even marketed for their immune-boosting properties, reaffirming that ancient Africans already understood functional nutrition centuries before modern science could explain it. What made African societies truly remarkable was their ability to coexist with disease rather than collapse under it. Through oral tradition, healers, elders, and diviners shared practical lessons on how to identify symptoms, recognize patterns of contagion, and protect communities. When outbreaks occurred, they did not panic. They adapted. Sacrifices were offered to appease spirits believed to bring disease, but alongside spiritual rituals came practical interventions, isolation, herbal treatment, and community reorganization. Some societies even designated disease watchers, elders or herbalists trained to recognize early signs of illness in livestock, crops, or humans. These early observers acted as the continent's first public health officials, warning communities to act before sickness spread. This indigenous system was not static. It evolved with experience generations learned from each epidemic, refining their methods until these practices became part of cultural memory, a living body of science passed on without written words. As the coronavirus swept across the world in early 2020, fear gripped cities, hospitals overflowed, and the unthinkable happened in many parts of Europe and North America. Yet, across large parts of Africa, the catastrophic death toll many predicted did not materialize in the same way. Many observers turned to the continent's long-standing reliance on traditional medical knowledge and local practices to ask, could there be something in Africa's heritage of healing that helped? In villages and towns, healers and herbalists, whose skills had long been rooted in caring for malaria, tuberculosis, and other endemic illnesses, found themselves called again in countries such as Tanzania. When symptoms like coughs, sore throat, and chest pain appeared, people turned to familiar herbs and remedies: lemon, ginger, local roots for steaming, and herbal teas for clearing congestion. In South Africa's Northern Cape, focus group studies found many households used traditional medicines during the pandemic, describing how plants were prepared for respiratory symptoms and community health. By some estimates, Africa's overall COVID-19 fatality rate was significantly lower than the global average. One early study cited mortality around 2.1% versus a global average of about 5% in mid-2020. While many factors likely contributed, younger population, prior exposure to infectious diseases, different patterns of urban density, the use of familiar traditional medicine and community health practices played a role in resilience. The World Health Organization (WHO) and Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (Africa CDC) emphasized that traditional medicine has an important role and called for rigorous testing to ensure safety and efficacy. In South Africa, a traditional medicine formula called Fila, based on 4 African plants and tested for safety and some antiviral effect, was showcased at a WHO summit. It's critical to emphasize, traditional herbs were often used alongside conventional measures: mask wearing, distancing, community health campaigns, not as sole cures. Many of the claimed remedies are not yet validated by full clinical trials. WHO cautioned about untested herbal cures for COVID-19. Data limitations, under-testing, and reporting differences mean comparisons across regions must be made cautiously. Lower mortality cannot be attributed solely to herbal medicine. Rather, it was likely a combination of factors, including demographics, experience managing epidemics, public health responses, and traditional care. Nevertheless, the story of African communities during COVID-19 highlights something powerful: a heritage of community-based healing, herbal knowledge, and cultural resilience. The healers who had cared for malaria, HIV, and endemic diseases swiftly remobilized. The plants they knew, the rituals they performed, and the community trust they held became part of the broader response. In doing so, Africa did not escape the pandemic, but it drew on deep wells of wisdom and resilience that deserve recognition in the story of global healing. Ancient African medicine is not dead. It breathes in the laboratories that now test its compounds, in the hospitals that practice holistic care, and in the millions who still turn to nature for healing. The legacy of Onesimus, of the Ethiopian herbalists, of the Zulu Nyanga, lives on in every pill, every vaccine, every hospital built on principles of prevention and care. And as the world seeks sustainable, natural, and spiritual balance, Africa's ancient healers stand not as relics, but as teachers. Their message still echoes: healing is not a science of the body, it is the song of the spirit. From the forests of Congo to the sands of Egypt, Africa has always known how to heal. The world only had to listen. This has been the Calabash Diaries. Remember, the story of medicine did not begin in Europe's hospitals. It began here, in Africa's sacred groves, under the watch of ancestors, where healing was both prayer and power.